The North Node is in the 4th degree of Taurus, and it stays there for quite a while because it comes forward and back and so on over a duration of some 6 weeks or something like that. Taurus 4, the rainbow's pot of gold, a promise of abundance. In learning how to conduct ourselves appropriately, we are creating a bridge between heaven and earth, communing with cosmic forces to achieve worldly abundance. This enjoyment of wealth comes only from an ability to have fair commerce with others. To inspire trust and to deal with trustworthy people is implied. Yet so too is the remembering in all world transactions of our spiritual heritage. And perhaps that last line is the clearest, to remember in all of our interactions our spiritual heritage. If we manage to do this, then pretty awakened people. In every single moment, there is the drawing into the world of form. We have to meet people that we don't really resonate with. We have to trade with people whom we don't really trust. And that interaction moves us into a state of decision, more or less in every single case, where we decide whether to trust or whether to be suspicious and to fear. Now, just because we trust someone, it does not mean the absence of boundaries. That's just foolishness. We are individuals and we need boundaries. And even when you're in a trusting relationship with another person over the long term, it's actually healthier and more sustainable when both of you are very clear about the line that must not be crossed, or there will be consequences. That line must be drawn. That's the beginning of all of my work in the 7-word system. The word no. My boundaries are there, you just don't cross them. Now, this is exactly the same as within Sufism, specifically the practice of zikr, which begins la ilaha illallah, la. It just means no. The Arabic word for no is la. So they start their central, primary prayer in Sufism with the word no. And I think we have to remember that. Once you've established your boundaries very clearly, then you're in a position to relate to the more heavenly realms. And the heavenly realms, the way we see them down here, are less well defined by boundaries. It's more or less all-inclusive. We're saying I and thou are one. We're saying there is no boundary between us. So those two things, being unbounded in spirit and being well-boundaried in your practicalities, that's the formula. And it's not a paradox. It seems that way. And a lot of people really do misunderstand spiritual principles by teaching self-sacrifice as a spiritual principle. And it's not. It's false. It's a lie. It's a device that was passed down by power possessors in the church to get the sheep to be more sheep-like. The warrior code of certain other spiritual traditions throughout history has been quite clear on this point. And when we find that we can balance those two things, we can either be very clear about our boundaries on the one hand, and yet also completely able to surrender to unity on the other. Then we've got this special place of being where we're neither lost in the earth plane nor lost in the spiritual realms. We're just not lost. We're aware and awake in every moment, and we can relax our boundaries as appropriate, when appropriate, and we can remember spirit very much more clearly when we do. And this whole thing of remembering spirit in every moment is surely the ultimate goal. Now, when we are in that state, then we're in a state of abundance and other conditions as well. That's not the only word to describe this state, Many qualities describe this state of being, but one of them is the word abundance. Now, each of the 7 planes of consciousness, so the earth plane, the astral plane, the plane of love, harmony and beauty, the heroic plane, and so on, they all have their own secret, their own message, their own lesson. And when we're discussing earth plane reality, we have to understand that the message here, the lesson, the secret of the earth plane is abundance. Now, this gives pause for thought, because we see people that on the face of it have all the abundance that there could be, the billionaires and so on. And yet I've met a few millionaires. When I was doing my accountancy work, I was in that realm. I was a bright young accountant and met all the millionaires. I didn't meet a happy one. I don't think that we should think of abundance as measured with dollar signs and things. That's not what it means. What we have here is the inner secret of abundance that really centers around the idea enough is a feast. You've got what you need. You've got a little bit more than that. You've got what you want, but you don't want that much in terms of things, because you've learned a bit of an open secret that you have to look after things. The more things you've got, the more you have to secure them from theft. And that takes up a certain attitude of being as well as your money. And you have to get really upset when you lose them and things like that. Whereas real abundance isn't like that. It's an inner feeling, which is something they can't take away from you. And there are people, when I've been traveling, the poorest people, that's where you go when you need help. If you haven't got a meal or you need some help from someone, a stranger, you go to a poor person. That's known by travelers. It's the poor people that feel generously dealt with in life, and they give because they feel abundant. And it has nothing to do with measurable wealth. This is so obvious to some people, but it's so silly to those people that get lost in the idea that you can count abundance in dollar signs. So that's the big difference. That's perhaps the litmus test for the good guys and the bad guys. One of them anyway. The good guys understand that you don't need money to be happy, and money is the root of all evil. And the bad guys just don't get that. They pursue wealth as though that's pursuing happiness. Well, it's not. Rudyard, Taurus 4. The pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Riches that come from linking the celestial and the earthly nature. In Genesis, the rainbow is the symbol of the covenant of God with Noah. In all mythologies, it expresses, in one way or another, a linking process or the bridge used by divine beings to communicate with mortals. What the linking process brings to the individual consciousness is elusive, as the rainbow never ends where you are. Yet it is the source of symbolic, universal, valid wealth. All wealth, in a very real sense, comes from commerce, i.e., from the commingling of minds, from contracts, and thus is based on faith in the validity of a promise. Good point, isn't it? We make contracts with people. We go to an employer and we say, we'll work if you'll pay, and they pay after you've done the work. And the promise that they've made has to be kept for there to be abundance in the world. And if that promise is not necessarily with your employer, but it is with God, as it was with Noah, nevertheless, we have to work in the trust that someone will fulfill their word, basically. And I think this is another mystery to fulfill your word. If you make a promise to someone, you must keep it, however inconvenient it gets. You got to keep it, because you've made a binding relationship. And that's the kind of thing we're talking here. When you can bind yourself to the future and say, that will be, then you're discussing space and time in the future. I will do that. not very many people keep their word. When it becomes inconvenient, they change the deal, you know. And those people who keep their word, they know how to manifest abundance. However, those people that manifest abundance in this world don't really understand the celestial side of this. So try and find this bridge between the earthly and the material, and the spiritual side of your life. And know that abundance is an inner state of being. It is not the riches in measurable terms that give you this sense of abundance, and wealth, and enough, and more than enough. It's the other way around. You practice that feeling of life is good. I have enough. I have more than enough, in order that this is what occurs in your life. The cause is your choice to have that feeling. The effect is abundance in measurable terms. That's a mystery that not many people will ever understand. So how do you get to decide to be abundant? Well, you practice appreciation. You look around at what you've got and think, oh yeah, that's nice. Oh, look at this food. This is great. And you do that all the time. Appreciation for everything as a spiritual practice. An attitude of gratitude constantly in your life.